Okay, now you've done your work, you've gotten a client, you're ready to show up at the house. What does an inspection look like? Keep in mind, you will get so much more detail when you get your mentor together with you and you go out on homes and you learn and you grow. But for now, we're going to give a general overview of what you typically are going to be looking for when you get to the house.
Remember that you'll be trained in and have reviewed your role as a home inspector based on your trade association's standards of practice. This is the most recent SOP from the American Society of Home Inspectors, to whom I belong. Whatever association that provides these standards to you, these guidelines are key to staying in your lane. In time, many home inspectors decide to go beyond these standards, but they do so with time and experience. It's vital to understand that if you comment on something, particularly if that something's outside the scope of what you should be commenting on, you're liable for that. As a beginner, it's very wise to stay within the confines of the standards of practice. So right at the beginning of this document, it tells you the purpose and scope of it. The purpose of this document is to establish a minimum standard for home inspections performed by home inspectors who subscribe to this standard. Home inspections performed using this standard are intended to provide the client with information about the condition of inspected systems and components at the time of the home inspection.
The following video in this lecture is a point of view video, and it doesn't have a client that I'm discussing anything with, but it will walk you through the different areas of the home and a pretty random assortment of things that we would typically be looking for when we do a home inspection. So don't be worried if you feel like it's too much information or that you wonder why you didn't do more in a certain area, because this is not exhaustive. But it is a very good sense in general of what a complete home inspection is from roof to basement that you're going to be expected to do. So let's get to it. So in your inspection career, you'll encounter a wider variety of houses than you previously may have known existed. At first, it may seem daunting to walk up to a large or older home and think, how can I possibly inspect all this? Through the interview process with the client, you will already know the size of the house and possibly a few things about it, but you probably won't know much of its condition until you arrive. And if you're like most inspectors, you'll learn how to gauge how long certain homes take to inspect. Some smaller homes may take just as long as bigger homes, if they're really in poor condition. In most cases, inspectors charge according to the home's size and not its difficulty. But if you have a system for inspections, you'll approach all homes with that same system. When I had my first 22,000 square foot home, I had been an inspector for 10 years. I wasn't scared of the size, but I knew it was an elephant that could only be eaten one bite at a time. It took 7 hours because of the size, but my process was no different than an 800 square foot Cape Cod. So let's begin. For this overview, we'll be using two homes of significant size, primarily because they were available for this video course and because they cover most of the components you'll see in homes. And they are more modern homes. I will intersperse images from other homes when it's relevant for the content. Remember, this review of an inspection does not include a conversation that you would normally be having with a client, their realtor, and sometimes even the homeowner if they decide to not leave during the inspection. The key to any successful inspection and to not missing items is to have a system. This will probably be the same system your mentor has, at least for a while. You'll constantly be evaluating your process and adjust for better performance with every inspection. The process I'll be walking you through today happens to be the order in which I typically perform my inspections, but sometimes things don't go as planned and I have to deviate one way or the other. The key is to not rush, but keep a pace. You'll learn how to do that in time. Be respectful and informative to your client, but manage the time so that you're able to make it to all of your appointments, because being late to any inspection is simply not an option. Starting the home inspection on the roof and exterior is wise because it helps to inform for the items you'll be looking for on the inside. It may be necessary to double back a few times to get some answers, but I found that starting on the roof, then the front door, and then circling to the right outside the perimeter of the home to the back and around again to the front door is best for me. At first, you're making general observations and assessments of the home that help you understand how difficult certain elements might be and how long you think you might be there. So a quick note about how you dress and the tools that you should have for home inspection. These are going to be the basic tools that you have, how you expand your business and what you want to do in terms of like infrared or moisture sensing devices or radon meters and all that kind of stuff. That's all coming later. But for now, we're just going to go over the basic attire and the things that you should have with you as you approach a home. First of all, you should be comfortable, but you should be professional. You can wear shorts in the summer. However, what you wear should also be able essentially to cover or carry the tools that you currently have. You could opt to wear some kind of tool belt. Some inspectors will do that. I don't find that they're very handy when you're crawling in attics and in crawl spaces, and you actually don't need all that many tools for the need for one of these. If you have on your body enough pockets, you really have everything you need for home inspection. But let's start with the attire. Usually, anywhere you work is going to want you to wear a collared shirt. You can wear a sweatshirt or a jacket, of course, as needed when the weather's colder, but a collared shirt shows professionalism. If you're going to have your own logo on it, that's great, but something to show that you're there to do a professional job. And then, of course, the pants, cargo shorts should have the pockets you need. I always wear pockets that have a little side pocket for my screwdriver, and then I keep this tool, and the screwdriver should be a multiple tool. It could be an 11-in-1, a 6-in-1. You're going to find that you're going to have a lot of different needs to interchange your heads on your screwdriver for the different things that you do during a home inspection. This tool is what we call a GFI outlet tester. Basically what it's doing is you plug this into an outlet and it's telling you the condition of that outlet in a very basic way, and it should have a GFI push button to test GFCI outlets. We won't get into what those are. If you don't know yet, you will be trained on how and what those are and where they should be. A flashlight. Now, I carry what's called a Streamlight flashlight. It's known in the industry. It's an expensive, about $120 flashlight. This is the original one I've had for 10 years. And this company happens to do free repairs on the lenses and the batteries. It's a good quality flashlight. It's extremely bright. I don't know the lumens on it anymore. It's rechargeable. You're not buying batteries. And it's a go-to, and it fits really well right into a Streamlight hip belt. You will always need it. You'll be pulling it out. You'll be putting it back. It's good to have it with you. But you'll decide what flashlights work best for you. When I go into attics, sometimes I'll wear a headband with a light on it. Sometimes that doesn't work out well. You'll decide what you need, but you will need some form of flashlight to get into the places that you need. Essentially, that's the tools that I would be wearing. You can carry moisture meters to test walls. If you're going to use FLIR guns, you should be trained on them. You really should be trained, and you will be trained on how to use moisture meters, where you're detecting moisture in walls and other components of a house. A level is a good thing to have around, though you'll find that a lot of times when you're talking about sloping floors or angled walls, you don't need to be doing a level. You can just call it out, but we'll let training cover that as well. Good shoes. You should have shoes that are quality. You're going to be beating these shoes up. You're climbing up attics. You're bending and twisting. You're rotating. You're dragging. They're shoes that you're probably going to end up spending over $150 on. But that's because they're going to last you a year or so. A lot of times, good quality shoes like Merrell's or Lands' End and those kind of shoes are going to give you some kind of warranty on them. But if you buy cheap, pay less brand shoes, you're going to be replacing them monthly with a job like this. So essentially, those are the coverages of the tools and the attire. Now let's get to the roof inspection.
The best roof inspection is one in which you physically walk it. This, of course, can only happen if it's safe, if the pitch or angle is too steep, if it's wet or snowy, if there are high winds, or if the roof is in such bad condition that you don't trust it structurally, you would not get on it. Other options in these situations are to inspect from on top of your ladder, from windows, or even a drone, which more and more inspectors are using. I should note throughout this section of the course, I'll be using terms for parts of homes that you may not know yet. Don't be discouraged by that at this point. You'll learn them in time, and many inspectors use different descriptors for the same item.
Even before you get onto a roof, you can do some observation from the ground about how water is managed. What is the direction that the water will flow, and where are the trouble spots in the valleys or drainage systems that could cause water to pool or be directed towards a wall or a walking area that could be problematic over time? Much of what you'll be able to observe about a roof must also be determined by accessing it from underneath, either in an attic or in some cases the highest ceiling reachable in a home. But while on the roof, you'll be trained to observe a multitude of components. For instance, once at the roof edge, you'll take note of the condition of the gutters, the drip edge, the gable and soffits. Are there vents in the eaves for attic ventilation? Things like that. I prefer to start at the highest peak of the roof, taking note of the chimney or chimneys, what they're made of, what deficiencies do the materials have, the liners or lack thereof, the crown, their height, the flashing or crickets around the base to manage water, etc. From there, I observe other items on the roof that penetrate it, like ventilation or fan hoods, dryer and bath vents, gaskets or collars around those items, skylights, and more. All the while, I'm taking tons of pictures to document the good and the defective. You can never take too many pictures, but you can take too few. Some inspectors now wear body cameras, such as the one shown in this video, to document the entire inspection. I'll leave that up to you and your advisors if that's something you'd like to do. Other elements of the roof inspection include looking for damage, improper installation, nail pops, bulges, soft spots, peeling seams, pillowing of the surface of flat roofs, puddling of water, cracked, worn, or curling shingles. You're also looking at the points at which roof lines connect, called valleys, and where they connect to a house structure where you're looking for proper flashing. And of course, you'll be documenting for the client what the roof is made of and its designed life expectancy based on the product. Be careful about predicting how old roofs are based on appearance. You'll get better at that in time, but some roofs, like rubber membrane roofs, are very difficult to judge age, if at all. As you move your way around the property, you're taking note of the angles of the gutters and where they drain. Is there a subground drain system? What is the grading of the property so that water is sloped away from the home? What are the home's exterior surfaces and what condition are they in? If there's a transition between one type of siding to another, was it done properly? You'll be trained to spot deficiencies in siding and its connection to windows and doors, and even to detect problems with stucco where you might recommend a full stucco inspection, which is beyond the scope of standard home inspections. You'll be assessing drip caps over windows and doors, missing elements like shutters or kick-out flashings at the ends of gutters that terminate against an exterior wall. Is there wood rot or missing or cracking caulking or peeling paint? Taking note of what kind of trim the house has, the condition of the windowsills. It may seem like a lot watching it on video, but keep in mind that you are on an inspection that typically takes anywhere from 2 to 4 hours or more, depending on the size and condition of the home. Your process is going to help you not miss items, and you simply take it a section at a time. Okay, now we'll keep moving and take in all the details as we proceed. Remember, if your client is with you, as they typically are, you will need to explain much of your findings to them as you go along, and be ready to field their questions, all the while remaining focused on your process. Again, you can choose to do what works best for you. As for me, I generally save the garage for after the exterior is completed. Now we're again looking at grading and getting an overall picture of the siding and trims and items I've already mentioned. You may need to get on a ladder to get closer to items not clearly seen from the ground, and you can use binoculars as well. You don't necessarily need to touch every inch of a property, but you should be eyeballing just about that. Find a pattern that works for you, like starting at the peak and scanning downward in sections, for instance. You should be noting and photographing everything, including defects and general pictures of the home. You never know when you'll need pictures to prove that you didn't break something or a condition did not exist at the time of inspection so that you can defend yourself if needed. You'd be surprised how many times you get a call from a realtor complaining about damage or a light left on or a curtain left open. Having documented evidence of the condition of the property as you found it can often put those complaints to rest. Here we're looking at the foundation. Is the ground cover below the siding level? Is the water pooling near it? What type of foundation is it, and what condition? You're taking note of vent and sump pump drains and their penetrations through the wall structure to see if they're properly sealed. You'll see here that I've noted a crack in the foundation. You'll be trained to assess these and the nature of them depending on their size, direction, and on what materials they're affecting. Sometimes if the conditions call for it, you'll need to note it and recommend that it be moved up the ladder, meaning you'll recommend to a client that it be evaluated further by a professional, most likely a structural engineer. It's always safer to recommend more evaluation rather than play down a concern. However, the subtlety and the nuance of that situation is something you'll learn through time and training. This video is filmed for the purposes of a walkthrough for this course and does not show the time you'll take evaluating these different elements and systems. As you move through the exterior, you're noting and discussing window trim and describing to the client what all the pipes and tubes and wires are, and many of them you'll find will appreciate the tour even if they already know what some of these things are. You remember the outlet test tool I showed you earlier? You'll be using that quite a bit to test exterior outlets and other locations to check for ground fault protection. You're also checking for proper covers on outlets and if they're secure. You'll be assessing exterior compressors. You'll note their brand, their age, if they're a heat pump or just an air conditioning system. You'll check that they're level. Are they rusted, vibrating, frozen over, or making unusual noises? You can't test AC in under 60 degrees, but if it's a heat pump, you can see the fan operating under that setting. Otherwise, you simply tell the client that AC can't be tested and maybe recommend that they get a home warranty or have an HVAC technician safely evaluate it. You don't want to be the inspector who ran a system you shouldn't have and damaged it. Everything I've already mentioned to look for on the exterior is obviously true for all sides of the home, so I won't repeat them as we move on. Understandably, one of the most important functions of a home inspection is to determine if the foundation is secure. There are many ways to assess problems with a foundation, and there are many types, such as stone, concrete block, and in this case, poured concrete. Looking for bulges, cracks, missing mortar, and leaning are just some of the practices you'll employ in determining the condition of the foundation. You've heard the phrase, "you can't see the forest for the trees," which simply means that it may be difficult to understand or appreciate a larger situation or problem because one is considering only a few parts of it. That can apply to a home inspection. I find it a good idea on each side of a home to take a step back and take in a whole side from a distance and take pictures from there before I continue my closer observations. Taking in the big picture first often helps to frame some understanding of the smaller components when you take a closer look at them. Again, we can't cover everything that you might see on an inspection with a single house example. Some properties may have an exterior whole house generator, a buried propane tank or oil tank, a pool, a well, a Bilco door for basement steps. This house example has none of those. You understand why we just can't cover every possible condition or system or appliance, but we'll cover the most typical for the purposes of this video. Okay, so let's get back to the inspection. Decks are a vital portion of the inspection as they represent significant risk to your client if not made safe. You'll learn how to inspect decks for safety, including the size and condition of their support posts and what footers they're resting on, if they're rotted or warped or improperly connected to the beams. You'll note the condition of the decking material and what it's made of. You'll be looking for the ledger board connection to the house and proper flashing there, as well as proper deck joist brackets with the right nails and no rust. You'll assess the stairs and risers and openings in them as well as in the railings. If you wish, you can choose to become a certified deck inspector and advance your knowledge to where you can provide a special side service offering special deck certifications. Continuing on, you'll notice hose spigots and see what style they are, like frost-free and whether or not they're dripping, but not testing them in the winter. Any outside outlets, and also the exterior door frames to see if there's any wood rot or peeling paint or damage of any kind, and to see if gutter downspouts are extended far enough away from the house. Okay, so fast forwarding a bit through the exterior perimeter inspection, we get to the left side of the property, and we see again another similar crack in the foundation around the same distance along the wall as we saw on the other side of the house. Now, you've observed two significant sized cracks in poured concrete. Usually a 1/4 inch or more is the point of concern for structure for that. You've noticed the home is built on a relatively steep slope toward the back, and you also see that this crack has been sealed in the past but is opened up again. You probably can't judge when the seal was applied, but you might. And at this point, you're making a judgment that this probably should be looked at further by a structural engineer, and you'd recommend that both to your client through your report and verbally. Now, the homes in this video and much of what I talk about are relative to properties in the Northeast United States. Many of you will live in areas that don't have basements or have terracotta roofs that you need to be trained to walk on or not walk on at all. You might have electrical panels that are on the exterior of the property. I recognize that there are some differences as you move around the country, but not so significant that you can't learn how to inspect them from your training wherever you are. Some other items you might find on a home inspection are a gas meter, where you're checking for rust, ground wiring, shut-off valves, and gas odors, and so forth. Gas meters can also be located in the inside of a building. Electric meters can also be located inside, but are primarily on the outside of homes. Here you're looking to see if the service wires are coming from utility poles or underground. If they're above ground, are they the appropriate height? Are they damaged, or is the sheathing frayed? Is there a proper water seal cap and drip loop at the house connection? Is the meter secure to the house, and is it rusted? Does it have the proper caulking at the box and watertight seals where the service wire enters? Are there visible ground wires, etc.? Remembering now to round off the final corner towards the front door, we continue observing grading, siding, windows, trees or ground cover that are too close to the house, any window wells that may have debris in them and need covers, basement windows and their frames, and of course, defects such as this gap in the brick face connection to the vinyl J-channel. During all of this, you're discussing with your client what you're seeing to the level that they want to be involved, but doing so in a manner that's calm. Yes, the problem you're telling them might be of considerable cost, like the potential of subsidence in the foundation at this house, but that's what this inspection is for. They will be happy to pay you for your service, even if they have to walk away from the house, to avoid a much larger expense in the future when they own the home. But you'll find that many concerns in the home are fixable, and that's where the realtors go to work in the sales negotiations. Don't avoid pointing out a defect. Just do it with couth and with the understanding that almost anything can be repaired. Realtors don't like alarmists who terrify their clients. So wrapping up the exterior inspection, don't forget at some point to observe the items not directly connected to the house. Take note of retaining walls, trees overhanging the property, sewer pipe vent stacks, the sidewalks and exterior steps for trip hazards or damage, the utility water shut-off at the street, if this property has a meter in a box outside rather than in the basement, the driveway and its composition and condition. Any lamppost or exterior lighting will be part of the interior inspection since that's where the switches for them are. Once again, I know I've said this before, but there are going to be components not mentioned in these videos that you'll encounter on homes, especially older homes. When you encounter them, you will have already been trained to inspect them, have been told they don't fall within the scope of an inspection, or you'll take it on as a learning opportunity when the time comes. Long after you've begun your inspections away from your mentor, you will be making phone calls to him or her to clarify any new findings that you come across. That's okay. Just keep learning and growing. Now, let's move on to the interior, starting with the garage.